Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, "You caused the car accident, I'm not worried but now you want to make a big deal, okay." This happened nearly 20 years ago. I had sold my car and a mate had a van sitting on his lawn. He owed me $50, so said I could have it. I headed over there with my girlfriend in a taxi, picked up the beast and started heading home. On the way home it started pouring down with rain, so we did a detour to the supermarket instead of walking later on. While driving down the narrow street, a car door opened and I plowed into it. I didn't have the chance to react. It was opened at the perfect time that it wasn't possible. Freaking out that I just hit someone, I pulled over as quick as possible and ran back to the car. There was a girl in the car and she was not injured but crying, freaking out that her boyfriend was going to be mad as hell because she'd come down to the shops to get him smokes. I told her I wasn't worried about my car because the bull bar took the hit and if she wanted me to hang around until he got there I could stay. Around 5 minutes later he arrived and instantly started abusing me, accusing me of hitting his car, etc. I politely told him that his girlfriend opened the door while I was driving past. She was parked outside the parking bay lines, and technically it was her fault. After several minutes of abuse, I agreed that we should exchange details as I was going to get his insurance to pay for the damage to my $50 car. He laughed and started to put out his wallet. "I don't think so, buddy, it's your car, but she was driving, I want her details." We exchanged details, jumped in my POS car and headed home. Several weeks go by and I received a letter in the mail demanding I pay the damage I did to his car. Quite annoyed by the insurance company, I called the local police station and explained what had happened. The officer said that normally if I were to hit a car like I did I would be at fault. But because he knew the particular street and how narrow it was, only room for cars to drive one direction at a time despite being a two-way street. Yes, stupid, I know, it was actually the other person's fault. Quote rule blah blah, alighting from a vehicle causing damage to another vehicle. Fine and demerits points, I can't remember exact dollar or how many points you lose. I created my letter declining payment, why, and inserted copies of the 3 quotes I obtained from local panel beaters. I posted that letter with great enjoyment. Several weeks later I received another letter from the insurance company stating that their client had agreed that both parties should bear their own cost and pay for their own damage. Thinking back to how much of a butthead the boyfriend had been, I called the insurance company. I eventually got onto a supervisor and explained the situation. If the police had have attended she would have received a fine, etc. The supervisor went silent for a few seconds and said, "She? Yeah, she, the driver, not the owner, the person who was driving, the person whose license details I have." It turned out he had made the claim and said he was driving, not her. The conversation didn't go for much longer, but the supervisor did say that they would be passing the case to their fraud department. Several weeks later I received a check for the damage to my $50 car. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was around $15 minus $1,600. The next one is titled, "I'm redundant but you need me?" Enjoy the wait for my work. I've worked for my company for 7 years. I love it. It's a great place. Except for my boss. She's a liability and has been the cause of several almost employment tribunals, all been paid off to settle, but as she's been shagging the owner she gets away with it. Anyway, we all know what's happening in the world, which is why I've been made redundant. I'm okay with this, it's expected. I was furloughed and since coming back part-time, I knew it was likely to happen. But I mentioned my boss is an idiot. Well, she told me that she wouldn't be able to pay my notice out because she needs all my help while she has it. Well, that to me was a kick in the teeth. Why am I redundant but you need me? I'm only working 2 days a week, but as it's my notice period I'm paid for the full week. It's agreed I work Tuesday and Friday. Fine. I allow all my emails to build up from her with her requests for things. She doesn't know where things are, she needs this information immediately. Nope. I'm working from home and don't have a company-issued mobile, so she can't force a call. Here is where my malicious compliance comes in. I get the work done as soon as she sends it over. But I don't send it back until the last 10 minutes of my working day. She's then slammed by emails from me and has to go through them to find what she needs. And just to make it fun, sometimes I send her random crap that she may need once I'm no longer there, which is usually just junk mail vaguely relevant to our industry that I would have normally deleted. It's only been 2 weeks, but her exasperation is rising and she has another 5 weeks before my notice is up. I'm doing my job so she can't say anything about it. I'm just being very conscious of doing a good job and only sending things when I'm sure they're ready. The next one is titled, I don't care that your mum is hurt, get your priorities straight. So this happened about a year or so ago, but I was reminded about it earlier today while speaking to my old boss on Facebook. Before I get started, I want to apologize if this doesn't qualify as malicious compliance. It starts off weird, but the compliance is definitely there. So, here are the people involved, me, of course Dan, my old boss, name changed, of course, Karen, his boss, again, name changed. So, now that the roles are laid out, here we go. I used to work as the residential manager of a house for people with special needs. I had previously worked in direct care and managed a house with a different agency, but moved to this new agency for a variety of different reasons. I've always worked in this field, I still do, and consider it my calling. It's very difficult work managing the house, as not only do you have to remember everything about each of the residents, referred to as the guys, but you also have to set the staffing schedule. Now, according to Karen, I had been hired to fix this house up. For a bit of background on the house, it had only been open for about a year and the guys had just met when they moved in, so they didn't know each other very well and were constantly making each other angry. Most staff members weren't sure how to work with them due to the lack of training and lack of understanding of their unique personalities, so they just kinda let the guys do whatever they wanted. Beyond that, there was no accountability. For example, there was a house credit card that was to be used for food and another to be used for items like soap and cleaners. There was no way to keep track of purchases because staff hadn't been trained on how to sign the cards in and out, how to store receipts, and what to do with the card logs. Needless to say, the house was a mess from a managerial standpoint when I got there, and they had gone through 6 managers in the 1 year they had been open. As soon as I took the position, I began learning everything I could about the guys, from parents, old documentation, and contacts with their previous staff, and subsequently training my staff on what I learned. I also set concrete processes of documenting money spent, med administration, and training logs because, yes, Karen hadn't instituted any training logs, so there was no proof that training had even happened. All of this work helped the house a lot and set us up in a good place. But it came at the price of almost all of my free time. Between all of the work I put in setting up systems in the house and all of the forced overtime I had to work, when someone calls out or doesn't show, someone else needs to stay to fill that spot. I ended up routinely working between 70 and 100 hours every week, without any overtime pay. Karen said that she would be there to step in if Dan and I needed something, but never once helped. This is important. Now all of that was basically just to say that I put in work for that job. Here's where Karen comes in. It's gonna start weird, but it circles around, so bear with me. I want to start by saying that Karen is beautiful, like really beautiful. So beautiful, in fact, that her boyfriend in corporate just had to give her a director's position as soon as they started dating. That's a different story, though. Anyway, Karen had a habit of flirting and making it very obvious that she was doing so. She would drop things on the ground while speaking with me and then bend down slowly in front of me to pick it up while wearing short skirts with tight thongs. I never complained, but it did seem a bit unprofessional. At first I thought she was being overly friendly, then I realized that she was hitting on me and using her sexuality to get me to do more work around the job. I'm used to that kind of thing happening in this field, but Karen is by far the worst offender. It kinda came to a head one day when she made a comment about bigger guys being her type. Being a bigger guy, I kinda picked up on it and made a comment about the girl I had just started dating the time. She laughed it off and said that there was no title involved in my relationship, so she didn't care. But I said that I did. She backed off, but she was never really friendly with me again. Things started to go downhill once she realized that she couldn't control me like that, which was fine with me. Things were calm and the house was running smoothly, with normal hiccups, but fate likes to strike at the worst times. I got a call from my mum basically as soon as I got to work one day at like 8 AM, saying that she had tripped over my ridiculously hyper dog and fell, and she was having a hard time breathing. I called Karen to tell her I was leaving and then rushed home. You'd think that someone would respond with empathy, but I was met with a cold, "You'd better be back later today." Okay, whatever, she's probably having a bad morning. I take my mum to the walk-in orthopedic clinic about a half-hour away, and after a 2-hour wait they finally saw her and ordered x-rays. Problem is that they don't do x-rays on site, so we had to go to another orthopedic clinic to get them done and read. I called Karen en route to the second clinic and filled her in. She told me that I had work to do and that I'd better get back as soon as I could. After another half-hour long drive and another 2 hours waiting for the x-rays to be done, we sit and wait for them to call us back in to have them read. This is where it goes south. Karen calls me and I run outside to take the call. Here's an approximation of the conversation. Karen, where the hell are you? Me, I'm at the doctor with my mum, waiting for x-rays to be. Karen, cutting me off, you said you would be quick. Me, I had no idea it would take this long. Karen, save it, you're probably just trying to get a free day off. You really have to get your priorities straight, you have no idea how lazy you look. Me, yelling now, so. I work 90-hour weeks and I'm lazy. I fix the mess you allowed to build up and can't take my mother to the doctor for an emergency without being yelled at? Karen, don't you. Me, cutting her off, nah, I think you're right, I have to prioritize. Consider this my 2-week notice. Karen, but me, click. I was shaking, but it felt great. She wanted me to prioritize, so I did. The job was suddenly much less important to me. I then found out that my mum had cracked her sternum and bruised a rib, less great. In speaking with Dan about the situation recently, I found out some fun things. My replacement has no idea what they're doing. They show up drunk, high, have no idea how to relate to the guys, and the staff don't respect them at all. My replacement's incompetence cost Dan his job. All of the work I had done to set up the systems for money management and medication administration was just tossed because replacement didn't want to keep up with it, so everything is back to the way it was before I got there. Half of the staff left, and the new staff have no idea what they're doing because there is, once again, no training for them. It's gratifying to know that the work I was doing was so necessary, but I do feel bad about the guys and think about them often. The next one is titled, Don't Want to Pay Your Gas Bill? Fine, I'll take you at your word. I've had a few jobs and one was working for a UK energy company in one of their call centers. I was in the website team and dealt with emails as well as calls, anything incorrect online or unable to log in on the website, but complaints handling was one of my duties. So I open an email from a customer who is having some issues and wants to have a call straight away, gave a time to call him and a threat to go to Ofgem, Office of Gas and Electricity Markets, if he didn't get his call. Let's call him Bob. So I phone out to the number on the email. Me, hello, is that Bob? I'm calling from energy company about. Bob, why are you sending me gas bills? Me, sorry, can you confirm that I'm speaking to Bob? Bob, it doesn't matter who you're speaking to, there's no gas at this address. I want you to stop sending bills. Me, are you saying Bob doesn't live there anymore? Bob, there is no gas here. 5 minutes later and I'm not getting anywhere trying to find out who actually lives there or if he's the landlord, so switch my approach. Me, okay, so when was the gas supply removed from less than the address greater than? Bob, there's no meter, it was taken out of less than the address greater than. Me, we can update our records then. Has the supply been capped? Capped means, meter removed and supply pipe sealed off so no gas can be used at all. Usually the contractor would contact the supplier to update this. If not, this is a gas emergency as there is a risk of an explosion. Just to give you an idea, at that time £0.50's worth of gas would blow up a house, about an hour's worth of a gas leak. Bob, no. Nothing like that's happened. The meter has just been removed. Me, can I confirm that for the last 9 months there has been an uncapped gas pipe at that address? Bob, yes. Me, is there gas coming into the property now? Bob, I don't know. Me, are you in the property? Or have you visited? Bob, there is no meter. Okay. Me, thank you for that. The emergency services will be there within 1 hour and if no one is at the address the police will have to force entry. This has been reported as a gas emergency and your reference is 666 to 666. All costs and fees for this will be charged to Bob or whoever is resident at the address. Bob, but. Me, can you confirm you are Bob XXX? Bob hangs up. Found out there was a meter still, he was Bob and he tried to complain I'd took it too seriously. police, gas emergency crew and fire engines were sent and the road had to be sealed off, and he tried to say it was me being a Jobsworth. Call was listened to, and because he wouldn't confirm who he was and insisted that there was an uncapped gas pipe at his property for the last 9 months, I'd tried to confirm this more than once and asked about gas. It was found I'd done everything as I should have. Moral of the story: when things can go bang, don't try to be smart. The next one is titled, Myself and a Toilet Seat Finally Get a Win from Australia's NDIS, National Disability Insurance Scheme. Quick backstory. A number of years ago, Australia's disability services swapped over to a nationwide scheme known as the NDIS. It's been a bloody nightmare for some of us. I battled for a few years to get my son registered. To give you an example, if you aren't on the NDIS, you don't get the proper assistance. Bad, there are people with cystic fibrosis who have been knocked back because it's potentially curable. Go figure, right? So, I finally get my son's plan, and as part of it we are allowed to get some equipment from our local disability services shop to help his day-to-day living. I go in the first day, I put the order in and they tell me I can pick the stuff up in a few days once they fill out their paperwork. They will call when it's done. Okay. So a week passes and no call, so I get in contact, and the response I get is, "Oh no, sorry, we haven't filled it out yet, we'll get on it now." 2 weeks pass, so I call back. This time the right person to fill the forms out hasn't been in, so oops, they will track them down and get right on it. Week 3 dawns, and I am in town, so I decided bugger it, rather than calling I'm going in. I walk in and it's packed, and with not just customers but also employees. I wait my turn, tell them my problem, cue once more the response, "Oh, the paperwork isn't done, we will go find someone to talk to you." A few minutes later someone else comes out and says once more, "Sorry, the paperwork isn't done, but it shouldn't take us too much longer." I figure duck it, I am not in a major rush, and while all the normal seating is taken, there's a disability toilet seat at the side of the desk. One of those big ones that fit over a normal toilet. So I smile and say that's fine. I can wait. Pull up the seat and park my butt at the side of the counter and just start smiling at them. The person I was talking to obviously expected me to go, so they start stammering and stuttering about going to talk to someone and bolts. You can picture how uncomfortable it would have looked for them. Those seats look really silly on their own in a setting that isn't a bathroom. 5 minutes later they are back. 2 of them this time. Once more they tell me it will take them some time to fill the forms. Again I continue to smile and say all good, I am in no hurry. They both bolt. Another 5 minutes and the actual manager sticks their head round the corner to see if I am still there, and wouldn't you know it, they come out and tell me actually all that was needed was my address, the NDIS number, and the items I needed. I was then allowed to take the stuff and go. So I guess as a basic rundown, 10 minutes of making the buggers as uncomfortable as possible, and not only did I get my stuff, but the people who stuffed us around are now in trouble because it should not take 3 weeks to fill out a form that asks for 3 questions. The next one is titled, Returns to the Delivery Door Only. I recently brought a computer part from a national computer retailer whose main warehouse shop is only 10 minutes away from me. They are currently offering collection as the shop itself is closed. When I got the part home, it turned out I had got the wrong one. No problem, I thought. I called them to let them know, and they agreed to the return and sent me an RMA, Return Merchandise Authorization, number in an email that I had to put on the package. I box it back up, label it properly and drive over to where I'd picked it up earlier that day. Knock on the door only to be told that they can't accept returns at this door and it has to be delivered by a courier. Now this was a fairly expensive and heavy bit of equipment, so a courier was going to cost a fair amount of money including insurance. It would also involve me driving past the computer shop to where I could hand it off to a courier. Cue malicious compliance. The next day I draw up some labels for my new courier, imaginary deliveries, add some QR codes for the look of the thing, and a company slogan, taking your things to amazing places. I also included a couple of other labels that helped sell it otherwise, including a Comic Sans label that says "This way up" and a chaos arrow that points in all directions. I put on my best courier-looking outfit, see a cap, baggy jacket and matching face mask, drive over to the computer retailer, go around the back to the delivery bay and parcel under one arm just wander in. I find an office, knock on and say, "I've got a delivery for computer shop, this is Unit 7 right?" I then make a show of scanning one of the QR codes and take a photo clearly showing the parcel delivered in their office. I leave feeling like I just pulled off a major heist. A couple of days later I get my refund and the job was done. The last one is titled, Must Teach and Test. No parties allowed? Sure thing. My dad recently retired from over 25 years as a high school photography teacher. I was in his class all 4 years. Before he got into teaching, he co-owned a photo studio and has experience in so many types of photography. This includes food photography, like when you see ads with pictures of food in them, this becomes relevant. At the end of every year, we of course had finals days. Classes would be blocked, so would therefore be 2 hours long to give enough time for students to complete final exams. Our high school was very strict on what could be done on those days. One of those stipulations was no parties allowed. Teachers were allowed to show a movie if subject related. Every teacher also had to have a test to complete on that day. My dad decided to have a little fun with those rules. Because of his extensive and proven experience in food photography, he decided to set up a lecture and test on the subject. He asked that everyone in class bring food in on the last day. There was a sign-up sheet to ensure we had variety and had certain items that would be needed. 2 things that were always required were mashed potatoes and vanilla ice cream. Other things people brought were drinks, cookies, pasta salads, cheese, crackers, etc. He made sure to have everything set up in the studio beforehand so the lecture would not take very long. The first thing he did when class started was take a scoop of ice cream and a scoop of mashed potatoes and stick them in front of a studio light. He would spend 5 to 10 minutes talking about how to photograph food and what types of tricks photographers use to make food look better in pictures. By the time he finished explaining this, the ice cream was in a puddle and the mashed potatoes were still solid and shaped like a scoop of ice cream. It was easy to see his point. Next, he had everyone partner up with a camera. Each student had to choose a food item to photograph and set it up at one of the stations in the studio. There were several stations, so everyone made it through in 15 to 20 minutes tops. Everyone always got a perfect score on this test. Once everyone was done, he'd throw on a movie that at least barely touched the subject of photography, even if for only a scene or 2. If the dean or principal happened to walk in, he'd pause the movie so the class could analyze the angles used in shooting the film and talk about how film was similar to still photography. Of course everyone would have to eat the food too, because it would be such a waste to get rid of perfectly good food. If there was a loophole for him to make teaching fun, leave it up to my dad to find it. Administration could never fault him for any of this because he wasn't technically breaking any rules since he provided instruction on a relevant topic and had a graded assignment. Thanks for listening.